You point your phone at a messy little square. Black blocks, white gaps. No words, no buttons, no obvious meaning. And then, almost instantly, a menu opens, a payment appears, a ticket loads, a website jumps onto your screen, which is strange because your phone just looked at what seems like digital confetti. So how can a messy-looking square of black pixels secretly contain information your phone can understand? The trick is that a QR code is not just a picture, it's a two-dimensional barcode. Instead of storing information in lines, like an old supermarket barcode, it stores information across a grid, left, right, up, down. And by the end, you'll see a QR code not as random noise, but as a tiny readable machine. Your phone finds it, straightens it, repairs it, decodes it, and turns it into something useful. The first reveal is simple. Every tiny black or white square is not decoration. Those tiny squares are called modules. A black module can represent one kind of signal. A white module can represent another. Not exactly letters, not directly a website, more like bits, tiny yes or no choices. When enough of those choices are arranged in the right order, they can represent text, numbers, Wi-Fi login details, ticket information, payment data, or, most commonly, a URL that points your phone to a website. So the QR code is not storing a restaurant inside the square.
It is usually storing an address that tells your phone where to go. But there is a problem. A QR code can be on a poster, a cup, a receipt, a wall, a screen, a crumpled piece of paper. Your phone does not automatically know where the code starts, where it ends, or if it is sideways. That is why almost every QR code has three big squares in the corners. They look like giant pixel eyes. These are position patterns. They help the scanner find the QR code and figure out its orientation. Your phone is basically asking, where are the three big corner markers? Once it finds them, it knows how the whole square is turned. But finding the corners is not enough. Real life is messy. Your hand shakes, the paper bends, the camera sees the code at an angle. The lighting is bad, because of course the restaurant has one tiny lamp and a dramatic shadow. So QR codes also use smaller guide patterns. These help the scanner adjust the grid, especially in larger QR codes. Think of them like tiny anchor points. The phone uses these markers to rebuild the invisible grid behind the image. Because to read the data, the phone cannot just see a blob of black and white. It has to know exactly which little square belongs in which little cell.
Now your phone has the grid, but it still does not read it like a human reads a sentence. A QR code has a structure. Some parts are for locating the code, some parts are for timing, some parts describe the format, and many parts hold the actual data. The data is packed into the grid as bits. Those bits can be translated back into characters, numbers, or instructions, depending on how the QR code was created. So when you scan a QR code and your phone opens a link, it is not because the phone recognizes the picture. It is because the picture was built from data, and the phone is reversing the process. Now comes the weird part. A QR code can still work even when it is not perfect. You have probably seen this. A code is scratched, a logo covers the middle, the paper is dirty, the camera is a little blurry, and somehow it still scans. That should feel impossible. If the square is the message and part of the square is missing, shouldn't the message break? This is where QR codes become smarter than they look. They use error correction. That means the code includes extra information that helps the scanner recover from missing or damaged parts. Error correction is like packing a message with backup pieces. Imagine writing an important note, then adding enough extra clues that someone could still understand it even if a few words got smudged.
QR codes do something similar, but with data. They do not just store the message once and hope nothing goes wrong. They store the message with extra mathematical backup information. So if a part of the QR code is blocked, the scanner can often reconstruct what was supposed to be there. This is why people can put small logos in the middle of QR codes. The logo covers some modules, but the error correction helps the code survive. Not always. Damage too much of it and it fails, but a surprising amount of mess can be tolerated. So, when you scan a QR code, your phone is doing a tiny investigation. First, the camera captures the image. Then, the software searches for the three big corner patterns. Then, it uses the smaller guide patterns to correct the angle and rebuild the grid. After that, it reads the black and white modules as bits. It checks for mistakes. It uses error correction to repair what it can. Then it decodes the bits into usable information. And finally, your phone asks, is this a link, a Wi-Fi network, a payment, a ticket, a block of text? That whole chain can happen so fast it feels like the square simply woke up. This is why the same kind of square can do so many different things. At a restaurant, it may contain a URL to a menu.
On a ticket, it may contain an ID that proves your booking. On a router, it may contain Wi-Fi login details. In a payment app, it may contain payment information. On a poster, it may point to an app download, a map, or a sign-up page. The square does not care what the information means. It just stores encoded data. The meaning comes later when your phone or app decides what to do with it. A QR code is basically a tiny doorway, but the doorway can lead to many different rooms. But here is the important catch. A QR code being readable does not mean it is safe. Your phone can decode the message. That does not mean the message is friendly. A QR code can point to a real restaurant menu, or it can point to a fake website. It can open something useful, or it can send you somewhere suspicious. So QR codes are not magic, and they are not automatically dangerous either. They are just carriers, like a written address on paper. The address can lead to a library, a shop, or a trap. The square only says where to go. You still have to care where it is sending you. So the messy square is not messy at all. Those three big corners are landmarks. The smaller patterns are survey points. The black and white modules are streets.
The data is hidden inside the blocks. The error correction is the emergency repair crew. From far away, it looks like noise, but to your phone, it is a tiny city with roads, signs, backup systems, and an address waiting inside. And the strangest part is how ordinary it has become. You see these little cities on tables, posters, boxes, receipts, tickets, screens, and walls. A hidden language printed everywhere. The next time you scan a QR code, remember what is really happening. Your phone is not just taking a picture. It is finding the square, measuring the grid, fixing the angle, repairing the damage, reading the bits, and translating a black and white pattern into a link, ticket, payment, login, or message. All from a little square most people ignore. A QR code works because information can become shape, and shape can become information again. So that little square on your table is not just a shortcut. It is a printed machine, a tiny readable city, a hidden language built for bad lighting, shaky hands, scratched paper, and impatient humans. The next time you scan one, remember, your phone is not just looking, it is reading.